The stars had never seemed so cold. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above New Horizon, watching the planet below rotate peacefully in the darkness of space. The colony world was beautiful from up here. Blue oceans covered most of its surface, with 3 major continents showing green and brown against the water. Cities dotted the coastlines, their lights visible even from orbit. 4.2 million people called this place home. They had left Earth seeking a better life among the stars, and they had found it here. Marcus checked his watch. His daughter Sarah would be getting ready for school down there right now. She was 8 years old and loved the native wildlife on New Horizon. Last week she had sent him a video message showing off a small lizard-like creature she had found in their garden. Her excitement had made him smile for days. The alarm changed everything. Red lights flooded the observation deck. Warning sirens screamed through the station's corridors. Marcus ran toward the command center, his heart pounding in his chest. Other crew members rushed past him, all heading to their emergency stations. Nobody knew what was happening, but everyone understood the urgency in those alarms. "Report," Marcus shouted as he burst through the command center doors. Lieutenant Chen looked up from her console, her face pale. "Sir, we have multiple contacts entering the system. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our sensor range." "How many?" Marcus asked. 37 ships, sir. They're big, much bigger than anything we have." Marcus felt ice form in his stomach. New Horizon had no military presence. They were a peaceful colony, protected only by their distance from any known threats and the general understanding that humanity was too new to space travel to be worth bothering. The United Stellar Navy kept a few patrol ships in the outer systems, but nothing that could face 37 unknown warships. "Try to contact them," Marcus ordered. "Standard first contact protocols. Maybe they're just passing through." Lieutenant Chen worked her console quickly, sending out the standard greeting messages in multiple frequencies and formats. They waited. Seconds turned into minutes. The unknown ships continued moving toward New Horizon, not responding to any communication attempts. "Sir, they're accelerating," another officer reported. "Current trajectory puts them on a direct course for the planet." Marcus grabbed the edge of the console to steady himself. "How long until they reach New Horizon?" "At their current speed, 6 hours. 6 hours. Marcus immediately thought of Sarah again. He needed to warn the planet, needed to start evacuations, needed to do something. His hands moved across the command interface, opening emergency channels to the planetary government. Governor Williams appeared on the screen, looking confused. "Captain Webb? What's going on up there? We're getting reports of sensor anomalies." "Governor, we have 37 unknown warships approaching the planet. They're not responding to our communications. I recommend you start emergency evacuation procedures immediately." Williams' face went white. "Evacuate? Captain, we have 4 million people down here. We don't have the ships to evacuate even a fraction of that number in 6 hours." Marcus knew he was right. New Horizon had cargo haulers, passenger shuttles, and private vessels, but nothing designed for rapid mass evacuation. Even if they started immediately, they might save a few thousand people at best. "Do what you can, Governor. I'm sending a distress signal to Earth right now. Maybe help can arrive in time." It was a lie, and they both knew it. Earth was 3 weeks away at faster-than-light speeds. Whatever was going to happen here would be long over before any help could arrive. The next hours passed in terrible slow motion. The planetary government tried desperately to organize evacuations. Ships launched from spaceports, carrying whoever could reach them in time. The orbital station tried again and again to contact the approaching fleet. Nothing worked. The alien ships came on in silence, weapon systems charging, closing the distance with mechanical precision. Marcus sent his daughter a message. He told her he loved her. He told her to be brave. He told her everything would be okay, even though he knew it wouldn't be. 3 hours before the fleet reached orbit, they finally responded. The message came through on all frequencies simultaneously. The face that appeared on every screen throughout the system was reptilian, with golden scales and vertical pupils. Sharp teeth showed when it spoke, and its voice was translated by computer systems into cold, precise English. "I am Commander Thelvar of the Vrexian Empire, loyal member of the Confederation of Ascended Races. This system has been marked for Confederation expansion. Your presence here is unauthorized. Your species was warned not to expand beyond your designated borders. You were told this sector was reserved for worthy species only. Marcus felt rage building in his chest. We received no such warning. This system was unclaimed when we arrived. Our survey showed no evidence of prior habitation or territorial claims. The Vrexian's face showed something that might have been amusement. Your ignorance of Confederation law does not excuse your violation of it. The sentence for unauthorized colonization is immediate remediation. You have 1 hour to evacuate military personnel from orbital facilities. Civilian assets will be sanitized. The screen went dark. Sanitized, the word hung in the air like poison. Marcus knew exactly what it meant. Sir, what do we do? Lieutenant Chen asked quietly. Marcus looked around the command center at the faces of his crew. They were all young, all dedicated, all looking to him for answers he didn't have. Outside the windows, New Horizon continued its peaceful rotation, unaware that death was coming. We can't stop them, Marcus said finally, but we can witness. We record everything. Every word, every action, every crime they commit here. Humanity needs to know what happened. We make sure their names are never forgotten. The crew nodded and returned to their stations. They would do their duty until the very end. The Vrexian fleet reached orbit exactly on schedule. They moved with the confidence of a power that had never been seriously challenged. Their ships were enormous, dwarfing even Earth's largest spacecraft. Weapons ports opened along their hulls, revealing technology humanity had never seen before. Marcus tried one last time to negotiate, to plead, to bargain for the lives below. The Vrexians didn't respond. They had said everything they intended to say. The bombardment began at dawn. Energy weapons lanced down from orbit, turning cities into fireballs in seconds. The planet's limited defensive systems tried to fight back, but their weapons splashed harmlessly against the aliens' shields. More ships joined the bombardment, spreading destruction across the continents. Forests burned, oceans boiled. The atmosphere itself began to glow from the intense heat. Marcus watched it all, tears streaming down his face as 4.2 million lives ended in fire. He thought of Sarah, hoped that the end had been quick for her, hoped that she hadn't been afraid. The communication channels from the planet had gone silent within the first 10 minutes. Now there was only the terrible light show below, and the methodical destruction of everything humanity had built here. When it was over, the Vrexian fleet departed as silently as it had arrived. They left behind a planet that glowed red in the darkness, its surface scoured clean of all life. The orbital station remained untouched. The Vrexians had wanted witnesses. Marcus compiled the recordings into a single package and sent it toward Earth via every available transmission method. Then he sat in his command chair and stared at the burning world below, trying to understand how this had happened, trying to comprehend the casual cruelty of species that could destroy millions without hesitation or remorse. The message reached Earth 3 weeks later. The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Every news network broadcast the footage. People gathered in the streets watching in horror as New Horizon died. The governments of Earth convened emergency sessions. Protests erupted in every major city, demanding action, demanding justice, demanding that something be done. Admiral Catherine Chen, commander of Earth's United Stellar Navy, watched the footage in her office at Fleet Command. She had seen combat before, had fought in the wars that unified Earth's nations, but she had never seen destruction on this scale. Her hands trembled slightly as she replayed the final moments of New Horizon, watching cities vanish in flashes of light. A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she said, her voice steady despite the emotions churning inside her. General Hammond entered, followed by the Secretary General of the United Earth Government. Their faces were grim. Hammond spoke first. "The Confederation has sent a message. They acknowledge the destruction of New Horizon. They claim it was a legal action under their laws. They demand that humanity withdraw all colonies and outposts immediately, and return to Earth and our immediate solar system." "And if we refuse?" Admiral Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. The Secretary General pulled up a holographic display. "They've made their position clear. They're giving us 90 days to comply. After that, they say they'll enforce compliance themselves. They specifically mentioned that our entire fleet wouldn't be enough to stop them. 'One fleet can't stop us,' they said. Those were their exact words." Admiral Chen stood and walked to the window of her office. Outside, she could see the orbital shipyards where humanity's warships were built. 47 ships comprised the entire United Stellar Navy battle fleet. 47 ships to defend all of humanity's colonies, all of its outposts, all of its dreams among the stars. The Confederation had thousands. What are our options? She asked. The political leadership is divided, the Secretary General admitted. Some want to comply to save what we can. Others want to fight no matter the cost. The decision will be made at the emergency session tomorrow. But realistically, Admiral, what chance would we have? Admiral Chen turned back to face them. In a conventional engagement? None. Their technology is more advanced, their ships are more numerous, and they have the experience of countless wars behind them. If we meet them fleet to fleet, they'll destroy us in hours. Then we should withdraw, Hammond said quietly. Save what we can. Survive to fight another day. Admiral Chen shook her head slowly. General, if we withdraw now, we're accepting that we exist at the sufferance of the Confederation. We're agreeing that our lives, our expansion, our very future depends on their permission. 4.2 million people died on New Horizon. They died because the Confederation decided they weren't worthy of life. If we submit now, how many more will die the next time the Confederation decides we've stepped out of line? So what do you propose? The Secretary General asked. Admiral Chen pulled up tactical displays, showing the distribution of human forces across known space. We don't fight their fight. We don't meet them fleet to fleet in honorable combat. We do what humanity has always done when facing a stronger enemy. We adapt, we improvise. We fight dirty if we have to, and we make them pay for every inch they take from us. She zoomed in on the Sol system, showing Earth's extensive network of orbital platforms, asteroid mining facilities, and defensive installations. They said one fleet can't stop them. Let's show them what one fleet can do when it's defending its home. Let's teach the Confederation something they've forgotten after centuries of easy victories. Let's teach them what it means to fight humans who have nothing left to lose. The Secretary General studied the Admiral's face for a long moment. You understand that even if we bloody their nose, even if we make them hurt, they'll likely win in the end? Yes, sir, I understand that. But there are victories beyond survival. If we fight, if we show them that humanity doesn't kneel, doesn't surrender, doesn't go quietly into the night, then maybe others will fight too. The Confederation rules because everyone believes they're invincible. Let's show the galaxy they're not. The next day, the United Earth government made its decision. Humanity would not withdraw. Humanity would not submit, and if the Confederation wanted Earth, they would have to come and take it. The message was sent across all frequencies, broadcast to every corner of known space. It was simple and direct. We will not comply. Earth stands. Come and take it. In the Confederation capital, the message was received with contempt and amusement. The ruling council laughed at human defiance. They had crushed 1,000 rebellions, conquered 100 worlds, and subjugated species far older and more advanced than humanity. These upstart humans would be taught their place, and the lesson would be written in blood and fire. Commander Thelvar was given command of the enforcement fleet. 300 ships, enough to reduce Earth to rubble and ensure no human would ever again challenge Confederation authority. He accepted the commission with pride, already composing the report he would file after Earth's destruction. On Earth, Admiral Chen began preparing her fleet for the coming storm. She had 90 days to turn 47 ships into a force that could face 300. She had 90 days to invent tactics the Confederation had never seen before. She had 90 days to prepare for a battle that would determine whether humanity lived free or died trying. The countdown had begun. The galaxy watched and waited, and in the darkness between the stars, both sides prepared for war. The war room at Fleet Command never closed anymore. Admiral Catherine Chen stood before the massive holographic display, studying the simulations running through their projected battle scenarios. Beside her, dozens of officers, scientists, and strategists worked around the clock, searching for any advantage humanity could find against the coming Confederation fleet. Every simulation ended the same way. Humanity lost. Run it again, Chen ordered, watching the tactical display reset. This time spread our forces more. Hit-and-run attacks on their flanks. The simulation played out in fast forward. The Confederation fleet entered the Sol system in perfect formation. Human ships darted in, fired their weapons, and retreated. The enemy shields absorbed the damage easily. Confederation warships peeled off in pursuit, destroying the human vessels one by one. The rest of the fleet continued toward Earth unopposed. Simulation time until Earth's destruction. 4 hours, 12 minutes. Chen rubbed her tired eyes. She had been awake for 36 hours straight. Coffee had stopped helping hours ago. Again. This time concentrate all fire on a single target. overwhelm their shields through focused damage. The simulation ran. Humanity's entire fleet concentrated its firepower on one Confederation warship. The shields flickered and died. The ship exploded. Then the Confederation fleet turned as one and obliterated the clustered human forces in minutes. Simulation time until Earth's destruction, 3 hours 51 minutes. "We're thinking about this wrong," came a voice from the back of the room. Chen turned to see Commander James Park, her chief tactical officer. He was young for his rank, barely 35, but he had a brilliant mind for unconventional warfare. "We keep trying to fight them like they're just another human navy. But they're not. They think differently. They fight differently." "Explain," Chen said, grateful for any new perspective. Park walked to the display and pulled up files from the New Horizon incident. "Look at how they approached the colony. Perfect formation, precise timing, methodical destruction. There's no chaos here, no improvisation. Everything follows a pattern." He pulled up more files, showing historical data humanity had gathered about Confederation military actions. "I've been studying every battle we have records of. The Confederation always fights the same way. They announce their intentions. They give their enemies time to surrender. Then they attack in overwhelming force using standard tactical formations. It's almost ritualistic. Because they always win," Chen said slowly, beginning to understand. "They've been the dominant power for so long that their military doctrine hasn't needed to evolve." "Exactly," Park said, excitement growing in his voice. "They're fighting wars the same way they did 1,000 years ago because it always works. They've never faced an enemy desperate enough or crazy enough to break all the rules." Chen felt something stirring in her chest. Not hope exactly, but possibility. "So we don't play by their rules. We don't fight the way they expect us to fight. We can't beat them in a fair fight," Park said. "So we make it as unfair as possible." Over the next 72 hours, the strategy began to take shape. Chen assembled her best people from every branch of military service, from civilian industry, from academic institutions. She brought in experts on guerrilla warfare, terrorism, piracy, and every form of combat that civilization generally frowned upon. She needed people who thought outside the box, because humanity's survival depended on breaking every rule of warfare the Confederation had ever written. Dr. Sarah Martinez from the Lunar Weapons Research Facility presented the first breakthrough. She was a small woman with gray hair and intense eyes, and she looked exhausted as she addressed the war room. "We can't match Confederation energy weapons," she began. "Their plasma cannons and particle beams are centuries ahead of our technology. But we don't need to match them. We need to find something they're not prepared for." She pulled up specifications for humanity's faster-than-light drive systems. Every spaceship uses gravitational manipulation to achieve faster-than-light travel. It's the only method that works. But the process requires enormous amounts of energy. When a ship drops out of FTL, there's a brief moment where that energy dissipates into local space. "We know this," said one of the other officers. "It's why ships can't drop out of FTL too close to planets or other vessels. The energy discharge could cause damage." "Right," Martinez said. "But what if we weaponized it? What if we put our FTL drives on missiles, small fast projectiles that jump to FTL for just a fraction of a second, then drop out right next to an enemy ship? The energy discharge would be devastating." Chen leaned forward. "Would it work?" "In theory, yes. The Confederation uses the same FTL technology we do, so their ship's systems should be just as vulnerable to the energy discharge. And because it's not a traditional weapon, their shields might not be configured to block it. How long to build working prototypes? 2 weeks if we strip drives from civilian vessels and repurpose them. They'll only work once and the guidance systems will be crude, but we can make it happen." Chen nodded. "Do it. What else do we have?" Commander Lisa Rodriguez from the asteroid mining colonies presented next. She was a hard woman who had spent 20 years managing mining operations in the belt, and she had no patience for formalities. "Admiral, you asked us to think about how to make the enemy's numerical advantage work against them. I think I have something. The Confederation fights in tight formations because it looks impressive, and it concentrates their firepower, but it also makes them vulnerable." She displayed a map of the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. "We have thousands of mining charges scattered throughout the belt. Each one is designed to fracture asteroids for easier processing. They're basically nuclear-powered demolition tools. If we place them strategically and detonate them when the Confederation fleet is passing through, We can turn the entire asteroid belt into a debris field. Their tight formations mean they won't be able to maneuver effectively. We can funnel them into kill zones. Won't they detect the charges? Someone asked. Rodriguez smiled grimly. Not if we hide them inside asteroids. We drill into the rocks, place the charges deep inside, then seal them up. From the outside, they look like any other space rock. By the time the Confederation realizes what they are, it'll be too late. More ideas came flooding in. The head of Earth's orbital defense network suggested linking all defense platforms into a single AI-controlled system that could react faster than any human crew. A civilian engineer proposed converting cargo haulers into missile platforms, sacrificing their cargo capacity to mount massive weapons batteries. A former pirate, granted amnesty in exchange for his expertise, suggested using debris clouds and chaff to blind enemy sensors. Chen listened to each proposal, approved most of them, and kept pushing for more. They needed every advantage, no matter how small, no matter how unconventional. Then Dr. Chen, no relation to the Admiral, presented the most controversial idea of all. He was a specialist in artificial intelligence, and his proposal made several officers in the room uncomfortable. The Confederation bans military AI, he said. Their laws forbid any artificial intelligence from controlling weapon systems or making combat decisions. They learned the hard way, apparently, after some AI rebellion centuries ago. It's one of their absolute rules. And you're suggesting we break it, Chen said. I'm suggesting we use every advantage we have. Human reaction time is limited. We think in linear terms. We get tired, we make mistakes, we panic under pressure. And AI doesn't have those limitations. If we give our ships AI-assisted targeting and tactical systems, we can react faster and more efficiently than any Confederation crew. It's a war crime by their laws, one of the other admirals said. Chen's voice was cold. They destroyed 4 million civilians without warning. They're coming to destroy Earth next. I don't care about their laws. If AI gives us an advantage, we use it. Proceed with development. The room fell silent for a moment. Everyone understood what had just happened. Admiral Chen had made the decision to fight without honor, without following the Confederation's rules of warfare. It was a point of no return. As the days passed, the transformation of humanity's defenses accelerated. Every shipyard in the Sol system worked at maximum capacity. Cargo vessels were converted into warships. Civilian stations were armed with weapons platforms. The asteroid belt was transformed into a minefield of unprecedented scale. Admiral Chen personally oversaw the most ambitious project, the relativistic kill vehicles. These were simple in concept but devastating in execution. Take a dense metal projectile, accelerate it to 90% of light speed using Earth's massive particle accelerators, and aim it at the enemy. At that velocity, the projectile carried enough kinetic energy to destroy anything it hit. Shields designed to stop energy weapons would be useless against solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The problem was guidance. At 90% of light speed, the projectiles crossed vast distances in seconds. There was no time for course corrections or adjustments. They had to be aimed perfectly from the moment of launch, and the targeting calculations had to account for where the enemy would be several seconds in the future, not where they were now. That's where the AI came in. Only an artificial intelligence could process the sensor data fast enough, predict enemy movements with sufficient accuracy, and calculate firing solutions in real time. It was dangerous technology, banned by the Confederation for good reasons, but humanity was past the point of playing it safe. Chen also made another decision, one she kept quiet from most of her staff. She ordered the construction of 200 sleeper ships, each capable of carrying 50,000 humans in cryogenic suspension. They would be hidden in deep space outside the Sol system, with orders to scatter in different directions if Earth fell. Each ship carried genetic samples, cultural databases, and everything needed to rebuild human civilization somewhere far from Confederation space. It was humanity's insurance policy. Even if Earth died, the species would survive. With 40 days remaining, Chen received a surprise visitor. Captain Marcus Webb, the officer who had witnessed New Horizons' destruction, had requested a meeting. She granted it immediately. He deserved that much after what he had seen. Webb looked older than his file photos, his face lined with grief that hadn't faded in the months since New Horizon. He saluted crisply as he entered her office. "Captain Webb," Chen said, "I'm glad you made it back to Earth safely. I've read your reports. They were invaluable." "Thank you, Admiral. I came to volunteer for combat duty. I want to be there when we face the Confederation fleet. Chen studied him carefully. Captain, you've been through trauma that would break most people. No one would blame you if you sat this fight out. Webb's eyes were hard. My daughter died on New Horizon, Admiral. Sarah was 8 years old. She loved animals and wanted to be a biologist. The Vrexians didn't give her a chance to surrender. They didn't give any of us a chance. I need to be there when we make them pay for that. Chen nodded slowly. I understand. I'm assigning you to command of the destroyer Vengeance. She's not the biggest ship in the fleet, but she's fast and well-armed. We'll need good captains who know what they're fighting for. Thank you, Admiral. As Webb turned to leave, Chen called out to him. Captain? When this is over, when the battle is done, I want you to promise me something. If we win, if by some miracle we actually survive this, I want you to help build the memorial on New Horizon. 4 million names need to be remembered. Someone who loved them should be there to make sure they're honored properly. Webb's voice was thick with emotion. And if we lose? Then we'll all be with them soon enough. But at least we'll die knowing we fought back. With 20 days remaining, the Confederation sent another message. It was brief and contemptuous. Your time grows short. Surrender now and some of you may live as subjects of the Confederation. Refuse and your world will burn like New Horizon. You cannot stop us. One fleet means nothing against our might. Chen recorded humanity's response personally. She kept it simple. Come and try. The final preparations continued. Every able-bodied person in the Sol system contributed something. Children in schools assembled supply kits for ships. Elderly citizens volunteered for civilian defense forces. Scientists worked around the clock perfecting weapon systems. Artists and musicians created works to preserve human culture, just in case the worst happened. On the final day before the Confederation fleet was due to arrive, Admiral Chen gathered her fleet commanders for one last briefing. 47 ships hung in space around Earth, each one a testament to human ingenuity and determination. They were outgunned, outnumbered, and outmatched in every conventional measure of military power. Chen looked at the faces of her commanders on the video conference. Young and old, male and female, from every corner of Earth and every colony humanity had built. They all knew the odds. They all knew what they were facing. And they were all here anyway. Tomorrow the Confederation arrives, she said. They expect us to surrender or die quickly. They think one fleet can't stop them. They're probably right, but we're not trying to stop them permanently. We're trying to hurt them. We're trying to make them bleed. We're trying to show the galaxy that humanity doesn't go quietly into the dark. She paused, letting her words sink in. We fight using every weapon we have. We break every one of their rules. We show them no mercy because they showed none to New Horizon. And when this is over, whether we win or lose, the Confederation will remember this day. They'll remember that humans fought back. They'll remember that we made them pay a price. One more thing, Chen continued. I won't lie to you. Most of us probably won't survive tomorrow, but our species will. I've made arrangements. Even if Earth falls, humanity continues. So fight knowing that whatever happens here, our people will endure. We're not fighting for survival anymore. We're fighting for dignity. We're fighting to prove we deserve our place among the stars. The commanders saluted and the channel closed. Chen sat alone in her office looking at the tactical displays showing her fleet's positions. 47 ships against 300. It should have been hopeless. It probably was hopeless, but humanity had faced impossible odds before and somehow survived. Maybe this time would be the same. Or maybe tomorrow would be the end of everything. Either way, the galaxy would learn something about humans that the Confederation had never bothered to discover. When pushed to the edge of extinction, when faced with overwhelming force, when given the choice between submission and death, humanity chose to fight. The countdown reached 0. Admiral Chen closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of all the people depending on her, all the lives that would end tomorrow, all the futures that would never exist if she failed. Then she opened her eyes, straightened her uniform, and prepared for war. The Confederation was coming, and humanity was ready to speak its answer and fire. The Confederation fleet arrived in the Sol system exactly on schedule. 300 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system, their appearance marked by brilliant flashes of light as their drives discharged excess energy. The fleet moved in perfect formation, a wall of metal and weaponry stretching across the darkness of space. On the bridge of the flagship Eternal Dominion, Commander Thelvar watched the tactical displays with satisfaction. His scales gleamed under the bridge lights as he studied the approaching Sol system. This would be a simple operation. Humanity's defenses were primitive compared to Confederation technology. The battle would be over quickly, and another lesson would be taught to the younger species of the galaxy. "All ships report ready, Commander," his tactical officer announced. "Weapon systems are charging. Shields are at full power. We detect 47 human vessels in defensive positions around the third planet." Thelvar's mouth opened in what his species considered a smile. 47 ships against 300. The humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Probably both. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he ordered. "Let's give them one final chance to surrender." The communication system connected and Thelvar's face appeared on every screen in the human fleet. He spoke slowly, clearly wanting there to be no misunderstanding. "Humans of Earth, I am Commander Thelvar of the Vrexian Empire. You have refused the Confederation's lawful order to withdraw from unauthorized territories. You have been given ample time to comply. Now you face the consequences of your defiance. Your fleet is pathetically outnumbered. Your technology is inferior. Your resistance is meaningless. I offer you this final opportunity. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Resist and your world will burn slowly as New Horizon burned. One fleet cannot stop us. You know this to be true. Choose wisely." Thelvar waited for the response, expecting either immediate surrender or desperate pleas for mercy. What he got instead was silence. Then, every sensor on the Confederation flagship screamed warnings. Simultaneously, the first relativistic kill vehicle hit the Confederation's vanguard before anyone could react. It had been accelerated to 90% of light speed hours ago, long before the Confederation fleet even arrived. The projectile was just a cylinder of dense tungsten, no larger than a cargo container, but at that velocity it carried the kinetic energy of a small nuclear weapon. The impact was catastrophic. The targeted Confederation cruiser's shields, designed to deflect energy weapons, offered no resistance to solid matter moving at relativistic speeds. The projectile punched through the ship like a bullet through paper, and the kinetic energy transfer tore the vessel apart from the inside. It exploded in a brilliant fireball, debris spreading in all directions. Before the flash of the first impact faded, 7 more kill vehicles struck home. 8 Confederation ships died in the opening seconds of the battle, and the fleet hadn't even seen what killed them. "Evasive maneuvers," Thelvar shouted, his composure cracking for the first time. "All ships scatter formation. Find those weapons and destroy them." But the kill vehicles were unstoppable once launched. They moved too fast for point defense systems. By the time sensors detected their approach, impact was already inevitable. 5 more Confederation ships exploded as the barrage continued. The Confederation fleet broke formation, ships peeling away in different directions to avoid the invisible death raining down on them. It was chaos, exactly what the humans had planned. "Now," Admiral Chen commanded from the bridge of her flagship, Earth's Pride. "All ships execute Alpha Strike." The human fleet had been waiting, hidden among the orbital platforms and satellites that surrounded Earth. Now they moved, accelerating hard toward the scattered Confederation forces. They didn't try to match the enemy's formation or engage in traditional fleet combat. Instead, they targeted individual ships that had separated from the main group. Captain Webb drove the destroyer Vengeance straight toward a Confederation frigate that had broken away from its escorts. His weapons officer had already locked onto the target. "Fire everything," Webb ordered coldly. "Don't give them time to recover." Missiles streaked across the gap between ships. Conventional weapons wouldn't penetrate Confederation shields, but humanity had learned from studying the New Horizon footage. Enemy shields were powerful but had a recharge rate. If you hit them hard enough, fast enough, you could overwhelm their capacity to absorb damage. The first wave of missiles detonated against the frigate's shields, brilliant flowers of fire blossoming in space. The shields held. The second wave hit before the shields could fully recharge, causing them to flicker. The third wave broke through. Nuclear warheads detonated directly against the frigate's hull. Armor plating melted and vaporized. Internal systems exploded as the ship's power grid overloaded. The frigate tried to turn, tried to bring its own weapons to bear, but the Vengeance was already past, racing toward its next target. All across the battlefield, similar encounters played out. Human ships struck fast and hard, then retreated before the Confederation could coordinate a response. It wasn't honorable combat by Confederation standards. It was hit-and-run warfare, ambush tactics, guerrilla fighting translated into space combat. Thelvar watched his tactical display in growing fury as red icons marking destroyed ships multiplied. 20 ships gone already, and the battle had barely started. This was impossible. Humans were supposed to be inferior, weak, easily defeated. They weren't supposed to fight like this. All ships, reform ranks, he commanded. Activate full defensive protocols. Lock down all systems. No more individual pursuit. We advance as one unit toward the planet. The Confederation fleet began to coalesce again, damaged ships falling back while others moved forward to screen them. The formation was looser now, having learned the danger of clustering too tightly, but it was still an overwhelming force. 280 ships remained operational. Against 47 human vessels, the outcome was still certain, but the humans had more surprises waiting. As the Confederation fleet advanced past Mars's orbit, the asteroid belt seemed to come alive. Thousands of mining charges detonated simultaneously, shattering asteroids into millions of fragments. The debris clouds expanded rapidly, creating a maze of deadly obstacles directly in the fleet's path. Shields will stop the debris, Thelvar said, though uncertainty crept into his voice. Maintain course. At first, he seemed correct. Smaller fragments bounced harmlessly off the Confederation shields, but there were so many of them. A constant barrage of rocks ranging from pebble-sized to building-sized. The shields had to maintain constant power to deflect the endless stream of impacts. Energy reserves began to drain. Then the human fleet attacked again, emerging from the debris clouds like sharks from murky water. They had been hiding among the asteroids, waiting for this moment. Their own ships took damage from the debris, but they had planned for it, reinforcing their hulls and accepting the risk. The Confederation ships, their shields weakened from deflecting asteroid fragments, suddenly found themselves vulnerable. Human weapons that had been ineffective before now penetrated defenses. More Confederation vessels exploded or went dark, their power systems overwhelmed. "This is not warfare," Thelvar screamed at his tactical officer. "This is barbarism. These humans have no honor, no respect for the conventions of battle." His tactical officer looked at him with wide eyes. "Commander, we've lost 47 ships. Our casualties are approaching 20%. Should we withdraw and reassess?" "Withdraw?" Thelvar's rage was magnificent. "We are the Confederation. We do not withdraw from primitive species. All ships maximum burn toward Earth. We will crush their planet and teach them the price of defiance." The Confederation fleet accelerated, pushing through the asteroid field despite the losses. They were still the superior force. They still had overwhelming numbers. Once they reached Earth orbit, they could rain destruction on the planet just as they had on New Horizon. But Admiral Chen had prepared one more trap. As the Confederation fleet crossed into the space between Mars and Earth, hundreds of automated defense platforms activated. They had been drifting in space, powered down, indistinguishable from debris until the moment they came online. Each platform was equipped with the FTL drive missiles that Dr. Martinez had developed. The missiles didn't look like much, crude and ungainly compared to standard weapons, but when they activated their drives and jumped to FTL for just a fraction of a second before dropping out right next to Confederation ships, the energy discharge was devastating. Shields designed to protect against conventional weapons couldn't stop the gravitational chaos of an FTL transition occurring just meters away. Systems overloaded across the Confederation fleet. Ships lost power, shields collapsed, and in some cases, the FTL interference caused cascade failures in their own drive systems. 30 more ships died in the span of minutes. "Sir, we need to pull back," the tactical officer pleaded with Thelvar. "We're sustaining too much damage. The humans have weapons we didn't know existed. We need to regroup and plan a new approach." Thelvar looked at his displays, seeing red icons marking destroyed ships spreading across the tactical map like a disease. Over 90 ships lost, nearly a third of his fleet gone, against humans. Against a species that shouldn't have been able to offer any real resistance. "No," he said firmly. "We continue. We have enough ships to complete the mission. Earth will burn." The remaining Confederation vessels pushed forward, their commanders now understanding that they were in a real fight. They abandoned their traditional formations entirely, spreading out to minimize the effectiveness of human ambush tactics. They activated every defensive system they had. They scanned constantly for hidden threats. The human fleet met them head-on for the first time. choosing to make a stand in Earth's orbit rather than continue hit-and-run attacks. Admiral Chen knew this was the moment that would decide everything. If the Confederation reached firing range of Earth, the battle was lost no matter how many enemy ships they had destroyed. "All ships, full offensive," Chen commanded. "Everything we have. Make them pay for every meter." The space around Earth turned into hell. Energy weapons crisscrossed the darkness. Missiles streaked between ships and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. The Confederation ships focused their fire with deadly precision, and human vessels began to die. The destroyer Vengeance took a direct hit from a Confederation plasma cannon. The shot penetrated the shields and carved through the hull, venting atmosphere and killing half the crew in an instant. Captain Webb felt the ship shudder around him as systems failed and alarms screamed. "Damage report!" he shouted over the chaos. "Engines at 40%. Weapon systems critical. We've lost decks 3 through 7, his engineering officer responded. "Captain, we can't take another hit like that. We need to fall back." Webb looked at his tactical display. The Confederation fleet was pressing forward, grinding down the human defenders through sheer firepower. More human ships were going dark every minute. They couldn't win this way. They needed something dramatic, something that would break the enemy's momentum. "How long until the main drive explodes if we overload it?" Webb asked quietly. His engineering officer went pale. "Sir, if we overload the drive, it'll destroy the ship. There's no surviving that." "That's not what I asked." "How long?" 4 minutes to full overload, then immediate detonation." "But Captain, plot a ramming course for the Confederation flagship," Webb ordered. His voice was calm, almost gentle. "Get the crew to the escape pods. You have 3 minutes." The bridge crew stared at him in shock. Then slowly they began following orders. They had all known this might come. They had all accepted that they might not survive this battle. Now the time had come to pay that price. "Captain, you should evacuate with us," his tactical officer said. Webb shook his head. "Someone needs to keep us on course. Someone needs to make sure we hit the target. That's my job." He thought of Sarah, his daughter who had died on New Horizon and felt at peace for the first time since her death. "Go, that's an order." "Tell Admiral Chen I kept my promise. Tell her I fought back." The crew evacuated, and Webb sat alone on the bridge of his dying ship, guiding the Vengeance toward its final target. The Confederation flagship grew larger in his view screen, its massive bulk bristling with weapons. It was shooting at him, trying to destroy his ship before it could close the distance. Shots struck the Vengeance, tearing away armor and structure, but the destroyer kept coming. Webb activated the ship's communication system one last time. He broadcast on all frequencies, wanting everyone to hear. His voice was clear and strong. "This is Captain Marcus Webb of the Earth Destroyer Vengeance. My daughter Sarah died on New Horizon. She was 8 years old. This is for her. This is for all of them. Humanity doesn't surrender. Humanity fights." The Vengeance struck the Eternal Dominion at full speed, its overloaded drive detonating on impact. The explosion was enormous, a miniature sun blooming in the darkness. The Confederation flagship, mighty and seemingly invincible, broke apart like a toy crushed by an angry child. Commander Thelvar had just enough time to understand what was happening before the blast wave reached his bridge. His last thought was a simple one. One fleet stopped us. The destruction of the flagship threw the Confederation forces into confusion. The chain of command fractured as subordinate commanders tried to determine who was now in charge. The human fleet, sensing the moment of weakness, pressed their advantage with renewed fury. Admiral Chen watched the tactical display, seeing the tide of battle shift. The Confederation fleet was pulling back, withdrawing to regroup. They weren't retreating, not yet, but they were no longer pushing forward with unstoppable confidence. "All ships maintain pressure," she commanded. "Don't let them recover. Keep hitting them." The battle raged on, but something had changed. The Confederation forces, for the first time in this engagement, were fighting defensively. The humans, bloodied and reduced to fewer than 20 operational ships, drove forward with the fury of a species that had nothing left to lose. Eventually, as the count of destroyed Confederation ships passed 150, someone in the enemy fleet made the decision to retreat. The remaining vessels broke off engagement and fled toward the edge of the system, jumping to FTL as soon as they reached safe distance. The Battle of Terra was over. The Confederation had been driven off. Earth had survived. Admiral Chen sat in her command chair, looking at the tactical display showing the scattered debris of destroyed ships, both human and alien. The victory had cost them dearly. Only 11 human ships remained functional. Thousands of crew members had died. The orbital defenses were in ruins. But Earth still stood. The planet below her continued its peaceful rotation, unaware of how close it had come to sharing New Horizons' fate. 4 million people had been avenged, and the galaxy had just learned that humanity could not be easily destroyed. Chen opened a channel to all surviving ships. Well done. All of you. You've saved our world and proved that humans will not go quietly into the darkness. Captain Webb's sacrifice will be remembered. All our fallen will be honored. But for now, begin rescue operations and damage control. The battle is won, but the war isn't over. She was right. The Confederation had fled, but they would return eventually. They had to. Their entire authority rested on the belief that they were invincible. Humanity had just shattered that belief, and the consequences would ripple across the galaxy. The question now was what would happen next. Would the Confederation accept this defeat and negotiate, or would they return with an even larger force, determined to erase humanity from existence no matter the cost? Chen didn't know the answer, but she did know one thing with certainty. Whatever came next, humanity would face it the same way they had faced this battle. With courage, ingenuity, and an absolute refusal to surrender. The galaxy was watching now, and humanity had just given them something to think about. The emergency session of the Confederation High Council convened in chaos. Representatives from 30 member species filled the grand chamber, their voices raised in argument that echoed off the crystal walls. For the first time in centuries, the council faced something they had never expected: military defeat at the hands of a species they considered primitive. High Chancellor Vextor, a being whose species had helped found the Confederation 5,000 years ago, called for order. His voice, amplified by the chamber's acoustics, cut through the noise like a blade. Silence. We will have order in this council. The chamber quieted, though tension remained thick in the air. Vextor's multiple eyes scanned the assembled representatives, seeing fear and anger in equal measure. We have all seen the reports from the Sol system, he began. Commander Thelvar's fleet engaged the human defensive forces 3 days ago. The fleet has withdrawn. Of the 300 ships we sent, only 143 returned. The flagship was destroyed. Thelvar is dead, and Earth stands untouched. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Some species representatives seemed shocked, though they had already heard the news. Others appeared thoughtful. A few looked angry. This is unacceptable, shouted Representative Krath of the Vrexian Empire, slamming a clawed hand against his podium. The humans used forbidden weapons. They deployed artificial intelligence in combat. They violated every convention of civilized warfare. We demand immediate action. The humans violated conventions because they were fighting for survival, came a quiet voice from the back of the chamber. All eyes turned to Representative Sella of the Talon species. The Talon were a small, peaceful race that had been conquered by the Confederation 3 centuries ago and served primarily as administrators and bureaucrats. They rarely spoke at council sessions, Sella continued, her voice steady despite the attention now focused on her. The humans were not signatories to our conventions. They owe us no adherence to our laws. We destroyed their colony without warning, without mercy, and then demanded their surrender. When they refused, we sent a fleet to destroy their homeworld. They responded the only way they could, using every resource at their disposal. Should we be surprised by this? They killed over 150 Confederation ships. Krath roared. They humiliated our forces. This cannot stand. Then perhaps we should not have attacked them, Sela replied calmly. High Chancellor, may I speak plainly? Vextor studied the Talon representative for a long moment. Proceed. The Confederation has ruled through strength for thousands of years. We have conquered dozens of species, brought them under our authority, and enforced our will through superior technology and overwhelming force. This has worked because everyone believed we were invincible. Now a species that has been in space for barely 2 centuries has driven off our fleet. What message does this send to the galaxy? The chamber fell silent. Every representative understood what Sela was saying, even if they didn't want to admit it. The Confederation's power rested not just on their military might, but on the perception that resistance was futile. That perception had just been shattered. What are you suggesting? Vextor asked. I am suggesting that we have 2 choices, High Chancellor. We can escalate and send an even larger force to destroy Earth, proving that we can crush any resistance with enough effort, or we can negotiate, recognizing that the humans have earned the right to exist on their own terms. Negotiate with primitives? Krath snarled. Never! We should glass their planet from orbit and be done with it. Other voices joined in, some supporting escalation, others calling for caution. The debate raged for hours with no consensus emerging. Finally, Vextor called for a vote. The decision was made by a narrow margin. The Confederation would mobilize a larger fleet, 3,000 ships this time, and eliminate the human threat permanently. But the vote revealed something significant. Nearly 40% of the Council had voted against escalation. The Confederation was no longer united in purpose. The decision to send a larger fleet would take time to implement. Gathering 3,000 warships from across Confederation space, coordinating their logistics, organizing the command structure, all of this would require at least 6 months. The Confederation moved slowly, their bureaucracy grown bloated over millennia of unchallenged power. During those 6 months, everything changed. The footage from the Battle of Terra spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The Confederation tried to suppress it, of course, but information wanted to be free. Traitors carried copies of the battle recordings to remote systems. Hackers broke into Confederation networks and redistributed the data. Within weeks, every species in known space had seen what happened when humanity fought back. The reactions varied. Some species viewed the humans as dangerous rebels who needed to be destroyed. Others saw them as inspiration. But everyone was talking about it. The Confederation's aura of invincibility had been permanently damaged. On Earth, Admiral Chen used the time to prepare for the next battle. She knew it was coming. The Confederation couldn't afford to let humanity's victory stand. They would return with overwhelming force, and this time they wouldn't underestimate their opponents. But Chen also knew that humanity couldn't win a second time through the same tactics. The Confederation would be prepared for human unconventional warfare now. They would have developed countermeasures, adapted their strategies, learned from their mistakes. Humanity needed something new, something the enemy couldn't anticipate. The answer came from an unexpected source. 6 weeks after the Battle of Terra, Earth received an encrypted transmission from deep space. The source was unknown, but the encryption was sophisticated, more advanced than anything humanity currently used. It took military cryptographers 3 days to crack the code. Inside was a message from Representative Sella of the Talon species, along with detailed technical data about Confederation military systems, fleet deployments, and strategic planning. The message was simple. Not all of us support what the Confederation has become. Some of us remember what it was like to be conquered. We will help you in secret, for we cannot help openly. Use this information wisely. Chen stared at the data package in amazement. It contained vulnerabilities in Confederation shield technology, weaknesses in their communication networks, details about their supply chains and logistics. It was intelligence beyond price, and it suggested something even more important. Humanity had allies within the Confederation itself. More messages arrived over the following weeks, each from different sources, each offering support in various forms. A merchant captain from the Kresh species provided information about Confederation patrol routes. A scientist from the Meridian system sent designs for improved human weapon systems. A military officer from a conquered world shared tactical assessments of Confederation forces. A pattern was emerging. The Confederation had ruled for so long that they had stopped worrying about whether their subjects were truly loyal. They had assumed that centuries of conquest had broken the spirits of the species they dominated. But humanity's victory had reminded those species that resistance was possible. Hope, long dormant, was beginning to stir. Chen met with the United Earth government leadership to discuss these developments. President Jiang, Secretary General Williams, and the heads of various military branches gathered in the secure conference room, deep beneath Fleet Command. The question before us, Chen said, is what we do next. The Confederation is preparing another assault on Earth. We have 6 months, maybe a little more, before they arrive with a force that will dwarf what we faced before. We can't beat 3,000 ships, not even with the intelligence we're receiving. Can we evacuate? Secretary General Williams asked. The sleeper ships you prepared could carry millions of people. We could scatter humanity across the galaxy, make ourselves too dispersed to be easily destroyed. We could, Chen agreed. But that's survival, not victory. And it means abandoning everyone who can't fit on those ships. Plus, if we run now, we're teaching the galaxy that humanity can be driven from our home. Every species watching us will learn that lesson. President Zhang leaned forward. What's the alternative? We can't win a straight fight. We proved we can bloody their nose, but they'll adapt. They'll be ready for our tricks next time. So we don't fight a straight fight, Chen said. And we don't fight alone. The messages we're receiving suggest that we're not the only ones unhappy with Confederation rule. What if instead of just defending Earth we went on the offensive? What if we took the fight to them? The room fell silent. The idea was audacious, almost insane. Earth had barely survived one battle. Now Chen was suggesting they attack the Confederation directly. Explain, Zhang said carefully. Chen pulled up a star map showing Confederation space. According to the intelligence we've received, the Confederation is mobilizing forces from across their territory to create this 3,000-ship fleet. That means they're pulling ships away from garrison duties, from patrol routes, from occupation forces. They're leaving themselves vulnerable in dozens of systems because they're so focused on destroying us. She highlighted several systems on the map. The Kresh have been enslaved for 800 years. The Talon have served the Confederation for 3 centuries. The Meridian colonies have been strip-mined for resources for decades. These species hate their Confederation masters, but they've never had hope that rebellion could succeed. Until now. Until they saw Earth fight back and win. You want to start a galactic rebellion? William said slowly. I want to give the galaxy a choice, Chen replied. The Confederation rules through fear and superior force. We've proven that they can be hurt. If we help other species fight back, if we show them how to resist, we can turn this into something bigger than just Earth versus the Confederation. We can make this about freedom versus tyranny. But we barely have any ships left, one of the military commanders objected. How can we help others rebel when we can't even defend ourselves? We don't need to fight their battles for them, Chen said. We need to teach them to fight their own battles. We share our tactics, our unconventional strategies, our willingness to break the rules. We become the spark that lights fires across the galaxy. And while the Confederation is dealing with rebellions on 30 different worlds, they won't be able to focus all their forces on destroying Earth. The debate continued for hours, but eventually, a decision was made. Humanity would not simply wait for the next Confederation attack. They would take the fight to the enemy, not with ships and weapons, but with ideas and inspiration. Admiral Chen sent messages to each of the sources who had contacted Earth. She offered technical assistance, tactical advice, and coordination for anyone willing to resist Confederation rule. She didn't ask them to pledge loyalty to humanity or promise any long-term alliance. She simply offered them the tools and knowledge to fight for their own freedom. The response was overwhelming. Within weeks, unrest began spreading across Confederation space. It started small. Work stoppages at mining facilities, sabotage of military supply depots, protests in occupied territories. The Confederation security forces cracked down hard, but that only fueled more resentment. Then the first major uprising occurred. The Kresh, whose homeworld had been conquered 8 centuries ago, rose in coordinated rebellion across their entire system. They used tactics learned from humanity's battle at Terra: hit-and-run attacks, unconventional weapons, absolute refusal to surrender. The Confederation garrison responded with brutal force, but the Kresh kept fighting. Other species watched and learned. If the Kresh could fight back, maybe they could too. Rebellion spread like wildfire across Confederation space. The Talon smuggled weapons to resistance movements. The Meridian colonists seized control of their orbital facilities and declared independence. A dozen smaller species launched guerrilla campaigns against Confederation authority. The Confederation High Council watched in horror as their carefully maintained order collapsed. They had ships, they had weapons, they had technology, but they didn't have enough forces to suppress rebellions on 30 worlds simultaneously, while also maintaining their planned assault on Earth. High Chancellor Vextor called another emergency session. This time the mood was different. Fear had replaced arrogance. The humans have weaponized hope itself, Representative Sella observed quietly. They have shown the galaxy that resistance is possible, and now everyone who has lived under our rule is rising up. We created this situation ourselves when we destroyed New Horizon without mercy, and then failed to destroy Earth. We taught the galaxy to hate us and then showed them we could be beaten. What do you suggest? Vextor asked tiredly. The Chancellor looked older than he had months ago, burdened by the weight of an empire crumbling around him. Make peace with the humans, Sela said. Negotiate a settlement. Give them what they want, which is simply the right to exist without interference. Show the galaxy that the Confederation can be reasonable, that rebellion isn't necessary because we will listen to legitimate grievances. It's our only chance to stop this from spreading further. You would have us surrender to primitives? Krath demanded, though his voice lacked its earlier conviction. I would have us survive, Sela replied. The alternative is watching our empire tear itself apart, while we waste resources trying to destroy one species that has already proven it won't be easily killed. We are facing a choice between pride and survival. I know which I prefer. The vote was closer this time, but it passed. The Confederation would attempt to negotiate with humanity. When the message reached Earth, offering to discuss terms of peace, Admiral Chen read it carefully before calling another meeting with Earth's leadership. They want to negotiate, she said. The question is whether we accept. Of course we accept, William said immediately. We've won. We've survived. We should take the peace while it's offered. Chen shook her head slowly. We haven't won yet. Yes, we drove off one fleet. Yes, we've inspired rebellions across their space. But the Confederation is still vastly more powerful than we are. If we accept peace now on their terms, we're still accepting their authority over us. We're still agreeing that they get to decide which species are worthy and which aren't. What are you suggesting? Zhang asked. I'm suggesting we don't just negotiate for Earth's survival. We negotiate for a new galactic order. We demand that the Confederation recognize the sovereignty of all species, not just us. We demand they grant independence to the species they've conquered. We use this moment when they're weak and scattered to fundamentally change how the galaxy works. They'll never agree to that, someone objected. They might, Chen said. Because the alternative is watching their empire continue to collapse. We have leverage right now. Let's use it. The negotiations would be complex and difficult, but for the first time since New Horizon burned, humanity wasn't fighting for survival. They were fighting for something bigger, the right of every species to determine its own fate. Free from the tyranny of ancient empires that had forgotten what it meant to earn their authority, rather than simply taking it by force. The galaxy was changing, and humanity, the newcomers, the primitives, the species that wasn't supposed to matter, had become the catalyst for that change. They had spoken in fire, and the galaxy had finally learned to listen. The war wasn't over. But the terms of that war had shifted fundamentally. The Confederation could no longer count on easy victories and unchallenged authority. They would have to earn their place in the new galaxy that was being born from the ashes of their old order. And through it all, Admiral Chen kept thinking of Captain Webb's last words, broadcast for all to hear. Humanity doesn't surrender. Humanity fights. Those words had become humanity's gift to the galaxy, not advanced technology or superior weapons, but the simple, powerful idea that freedom was worth fighting for, no matter the odds. It was an idea that, once planted, could never be fully eradicated. The Confederation had laughed when humanity spoke. They weren't laughing anymore. The negotiations began on neutral ground, a space station in the Meridian system that had recently declared independence from the Confederation. The choice of location was symbolic. The Meridian people had been the first to successfully throw off Confederation rule after Earth's victory, and they wanted the galaxy to see what freedom looked like. Admiral Catherine Chen led the human delegation. Beside her sat representatives from the Kresh, the Talon, the Meridian colonies, and a dozen other species that had risen in rebellion. Across the table sat High Chancellor Vextor and what remained of the Confederation High Council. The contrast was stark. The Confederation representatives sat in ornate chairs, wearing ceremonial robes that spoke of ancient authority and unchallenged power. The rebels sat in simple seats wearing practical clothing, looking less like diplomats and more like soldiers who had just stepped off the battlefield. Which in many cases they had. Vextor opened the discussions. His voice was tired, lacking the commanding presence he had once possessed. We are here to end the hostilities between the Confederation and those who have taken up arms against us. The Confederation recognizes that mistakes were made in our handling of the human situation. We are prepared to offer Earth full sovereignty and recognition as an independent power. Chen leaned forward. That's not enough. Silence filled the room. Vextor's multiple eyes focused on her. What do you mean, not enough? You have won your independence. What more do you want? Justice, Chen said simply. Not just for Earth, but for everyone in this room. For everyone across the galaxy who has lived under Confederation rule without choosing it. For every species that was conquered and never given a choice about their own fate. You ask us to dissolve the Confederation? Vextor's voice carried disbelief. That is impossible. The Confederation has maintained peace and order in this galaxy for 5,000 years. You've maintained control. Representative Sella of the Talon corrected quietly. That's not the same as peace. You've suppressed conflicts through overwhelming force, but you haven't resolved them. You've created an order based on fear and submission. That's not peace. That's just an absence of visible resistance. Krath, the Vrexian representative who had once called so loudly for Earth's destruction, spoke up. His voice was subdued now, changed by the losses his empire had suffered. What exactly are you demanding? Chen pulled up a document on the holographic display. We propose a new galactic council, one where every species has equal representation regardless of military power or technological advancement. We propose that all conquered territories be given the choice of independence or voluntary membership in a reformed confederation. We propose that the old laws, the ones that divided species into worthy and unworthy, be abolished completely, and we propose that the Vrexian Empire be dissolved, with reparations paid to New Horizons survivors and the families of those who died. The Confederation representatives erupted in protest. The demands were too extreme, they said. Impossible to implement. An insult to the natural order of the galaxy. How could they possibly agree to dissolve the system that had worked for millennia? But Chen had expected this reaction. She let them vent their outrage, then spoke again, her voice cutting through the noise. You have a choice. You can agree to these terms and help build a new system based on cooperation rather than domination. Or you can refuse and watch as the rebellions continue to spread. Right now, you're fighting on 37 different fronts. How many more uprisings can you handle? How many more battles can you afford to lose? The galaxy is watching this negotiation, waiting to see if the Confederation will adapt or die. Choose wisely. The negotiations stretched on for days. The Confederation representatives fought every point, trying to preserve as much of their old authority as possible. But they were negotiating from weakness, and everyone in the room knew it. The rebellions hadn't stopped. Every day brought news of another uprising, another system declaring independence, another crack in the Confederation's authority. Meanwhile, the Confederation's planned assault on Earth had been indefinitely delayed. The 3,000 ships they had been gathering were now scattered across Confederation space, trying desperately to suppress the spreading chaos. The fleet that was supposed to destroy humanity was instead fighting to hold together an empire that was crumbling from within. During a break in the negotiations, Chen stood at the observation window looking out at the stars. President Zhang joined her, his expression thoughtful. Do you think they'll agree? He asked. They'll have to, Chen replied. The alternative is worse for them. But I keep thinking about what comes after. Let's say we get everything we're asking for. Let's say the Confederation agrees to reform, to give independence to conquered species to create a more equal system. That doesn't fix the underlying problems. What do you mean? Chen gestured at the stars. The Confederation became what it is because it was powerful and nobody could stop it. Power corrupts, especially when it's unchallenged for thousands of years. If we create a new system now, what's to stop it from becoming just as bad in another few thousand years? What's to stop humanity from becoming the next Confederation once we're powerful enough? Zhang smiled slightly. That's a very long-term problem to be worrying about, is it? We just proved that we'll break any rule, use any weapon, fight as dirty as necessary to survive. That makes us dangerous. The galaxy should probably be more afraid of us than they realize. So what do we do about it? Chen turned to face him. We build in safeguards. We make sure that no single species or alliance can dominate the others. We create systems that force cooperation instead of enabling conquest. And we remember, always remember what it felt like to be the weak ones, the ones facing extinction, the ones who had to fight for our right to exist. We make sure humanity never forgets that lesson. The negotiations eventually produced an agreement. It wasn't everything the rebels wanted, but it was far more than the Confederation had intended to give. The key points were clear. All conquered species would be given a choice. Independence or voluntary membership in a reformed confederation based on mutual benefit rather than submission. The old laws classifying species as worthy or unworthy were abolished. A new galactic council would be established with equal representation for all member species. The Rexian Empire would pay reparations to New Horizon and grant independence to its subject territories. And, most importantly, the Confederation would formally recognize that military power did not grant the right to rule other species without their consent. It was a revolution, wrapped in diplomatic language. The galaxy would never be the same. But not everyone in the Confederation accepted the new order. Hardliners within the Vrexian military refused to acknowledge the peace agreement. They saw it as a betrayal of everything the Confederation stood for. Under the leadership of General Crix, a faction of the Vrexian fleet decided to continue the war on their own terms. Crix broadcast his intentions across the galaxy. The Confederation has grown weak and cowardly. They negotiate with primitives and rebels as if we were equals. This is unacceptable. I'm taking command of Loyalist forces. We will complete the mission the Confederation abandoned. We will destroy Earth and crush the rebellions. We will restore the proper order. 300 ships rallied to Crix's banner, still a formidable force. They set course for Earth, ignoring the ceasefire, determined to finish what Thelvar had started. Admiral Chen received the warning with grim determination. How long until they arrive? 4 weeks, Admiral. But this time we won't be facing them alone. The new Galactic Council has voted to send support. The Talon are sending ships. The Kresh are sending ships. Even some of the Confederation loyalists are sending forces to defend Earth against this rogue fleet. Chen felt something she hadn't expected to feel. Hope. How many ships total? Combined forces number approximately 600 vessels, Admiral. We'll outnumber Crix's fleet 2-1. For the first time since this began, humanity would fight with allies rather than alone. It was a strange feeling, knowing that other species were willing to risk their own forces to defend Earth. It suggested that something fundamental had shifted in galactic politics. When General Crix's fleet arrived at the Sol system, they found themselves facing an unexpected sight. Hundreds of ships from dozens of species formed a defensive line around Earth. Human vessels flew in formation with Kresh cruisers and Talon frigates. Former enemies worked together with the precision of allies who had trained for this moment. Crix broadcast a message to the defenders. Stand aside. This is Confederation business. We will destroy the human homeworld and restore proper order. Any who interfere will be destroyed as well. Admiral Chen replied personally, her face appearing on every screen in both fleets. General Crix, you're operating without Confederation authority. You're a rogue element, a remnant of an old order that no longer exists. We're not just defending Earth anymore. We're defending the principle that no species has the right to destroy another, simply because they have the power to do so. Turn back now or face the consequences. Crix's response was to open fire, but this battle was different from the first one. The Allied fleet had been training together for weeks, sharing tactics and coordinating strategies. Human unconventional warfare methods combined with Kresh endurance and Talon technical expertise created a fighting force unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. The battle was fierce but decisive. Crix's forces fought with the fanaticism of true believers, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. The Allied fleet used tactics borrowed from humanity's first battle, updated and improved through collaborative planning. Ships from different species covered each other's weaknesses and amplified each other's strengths. Within 6 hours, it was over. General Crix's flagship was disabled, and the surviving ships of his fleet surrendered. The last remnant of the old Confederation's absolute power had been broken. As the Allied fleet secured the prisoners and began rescue operations, Chen received a communication from High Chancellor Vextor. The Chancellor looked even more tired than during the negotiations, but there was something else in his expression now. Something that might have been respect. Admiral Chen, the Confederation High Council has reviewed the battle data. We want you to know that the Loyalist forces who remained with us also contributed to your defense. We sent 200 ships to intercept Crix's fleet if they had somehow gotten past your defenses. We would not have allowed him to destroy Earth. Chen studied his face carefully. Why are you telling me this? Because I want you to understand that the Confederation is changing. Not quickly, not easily, but we are changing. You and your allies have taught us that power without consent creates enemies, not subjects. That lesson came at a terrible cost, but we are learning it. The destruction of New Horizon was a crime. We cannot undo it, but we can ensure it never happens again. Words are easy, Chancellor. Actions will prove whether you mean them. Agreed. Which is why I wanted to inform you personally that the Confederation has ratified the new Galactic Council Charter. All occupied territories are being given the choice you demanded. The first elections for council representatives will be held within the year, and the Vrexian Empire has begun paying reparations to New Horizons survivors. The galaxy you fought to create is becoming real. After the communication ended, Chen sat quietly in her command chair, trying to process what had happened. They had won, not just the battle, but something larger. They had changed the galaxy itself, forced an empire that had stood for 5,000 years to fundamentally transform. The cost had been enormous. 4 million dead on New Horizon, thousands more killed in the battles and rebellions. Captain Webb and countless others who had sacrificed themselves to protect humanity's future. The price of freedom had been paid in blood and fire, but it had been worth it. Because now no species would face what humanity had faced. No colony would burn without warning. No primitive civilization would be destroyed simply for being in the wrong place. The galaxy had learned a new rule, one written by human defiance, that all species deserved the right to exist on their own terms. 6 months later, Admiral Chen stood on New Horizon. The planet had been terraformed again, its surface scrubbed clean of the radiation and devastation. Cities were being rebuilt. Colonists were returning, including survivors who had been found in underground bunkers that had somehow endured the bombardment. The world that had died was being reborn. At the center of the main settlement, a memorial had been constructed. 4 million names were carved into black stone that stretched for miles, each name representing a life stolen too soon. Above the names, a simple inscription read, "They died because someone decided they were unworthy. We fought so that no one would ever make that decision again." Captain Marcus Webb's name was there, added posthumously when his daughter Sarah's name was discovered still in the database of survivors. She had died in the bombardment, but he had died making sure it would never happen to anyone else. Chen walked along the memorial, running her fingers over the carved names. President Zhang walked beside her, along with representatives from dozens of species who had come to pay their respects. "It's beautiful," Zhang said quietly, "and terrible. A reminder of why we fought, and why we must never stop fighting," Chen added. "The galaxy is changing, but change is fragile. It needs to be protected, nurtured, defended. The moment we get comfortable, the moment we think we've won forever, that's when we risk becoming what the Confederation was." Representative Sela approached them, her expression somber. "The new Galactic Council meets for the first time next month. Humanity will have its seat as promised. What will you tell them when you take your place?" Chen looked at the memorial, at the names of the dead stretching as far as she could see. "I'll tell them that we remember. We remember what it was like to be powerless, to face extinction, to have no choice but to fight or die. And we'll make sure the galaxy never forgets that lesson. We'll stand with anyone who faces what we faced. We'll oppose anyone who tries to recreate what the Confederation was. That's humanity's promise to the stars." Sela nodded slowly. "Many species are grateful for what humanity did. But some fear you. They see how you fought, how you broke every rule, how you refused to surrender even when defeat seemed certain. They worry about what humanity will become when you're the powerful ones." "Good," Chen said. "They should worry. Power should be feared, questioned, challenged. That's the only way to keep it from becoming tyranny. If the galaxy fears human power, they'll watch us carefully, hold us accountable, stop us if we go too far. That's exactly what we need." She turned to face Sela directly. "But here's the difference between humanity and the old Confederation. We welcome that oversight. We want to be challenged and questioned, because we know what happens when power goes unchecked. We've seen it, fought it, nearly died because of it. We won't become that, because we'll never forget what it felt like to be on the other side." The dedication ceremony concluded as the sun set over New Horizon. Representatives from across the galaxy stood together, united by shared loss and shared hope for a better future. The memorial would stand forever, a reminder of the price of freedom and the cost of forgetting that all lives matter, regardless of how primitive or advanced a species might be. As Chen prepared to return to Earth, she received a message from the Galactic Council. They wanted her to serve as the first Supreme Commander of the Council Defense Force, a new military organization designed to protect independent species from aggression. It was a position of enormous responsibility and power. She accepted, but with conditions. The defense force would be composed of ships from multiple species, with no single species holding more than 20% of the total force. Command would rotate between species every 5 years. And most importantly, the defense force could only be deployed with the unanimous consent of the Council. No single commander, no matter how trusted, would have the power to use that military force without oversight. They were safeguards designed to prevent exactly what the Confederation had become. Whether they would work in the long term, Chen didn't know. But they were the best humanity could do to ensure that the galaxy's new order didn't eventually repeat the old order's mistakes. Years passed. The galaxy adjusted to its new reality. Some former Confederation members struggled with their reduced status. Others thrived with their newfound freedom. New alliances formed, based on mutual interest rather than conquest. Trade networks expanded. Cultural exchange flourished. The galaxy discovered what it was like to exist without an empire dictating terms from above. Humanity grew too, expanding cautiously into space with a new understanding of their place in the galactic community. They were no longer the newcomers, no longer the primitives to be dismissed or destroyed. They were the species that had changed everything, and that reputation carried both respect and wariness. New Horizon became a symbol. Every species sent representatives to visit the memorial, to understand what had happened here and why it mattered. The 4 million names carved in stone served as a constant reminder of the cost of arrogance and the value of recognizing the worth of all sentient life. Admiral Chen, now elderly and ready to retire, gave one final speech at the Galactic Council before stepping down from her position. She stood at the podium, looking out at representatives from hundreds of species, and spoke with the wisdom earned through fire and blood. When the Confederation destroyed New Horizon, they said one fleet couldn't stop them. They were wrong. One fleet, combined with determination and the willingness to fight for survival, changed the galaxy. But here's what I want you all to remember. It shouldn't have taken a battle. It shouldn't have required 4 million deaths. It shouldn't have needed humanity to fight back before the galaxy recognized that all species deserve the right to exist. She paused, letting her words sink in. We built something new from the ashes of the old order. We created a system based on cooperation and mutual respect. But that system is fragile. It requires constant work, constant vigilance, constant willingness to stand up for what's right even when it's difficult. The moment we become comfortable, the moment we stop questioning power and holding each other accountable, that's when we risk sliding back into tyranny. So here's my challenge to all of you. To every species represented in this chamber, don't let what happened to New Horizon happen again. Not to anyone. Not under any circumstances. When you see injustice, speak up. When you see power abused, resist. When you see a species threatened simply for existing, defend them. That's the lesson humanity tried to teach the galaxy, written in fire and blood. Don't make us teach it again. The chamber erupted in applause, representatives from across the galaxy rising to their feet. It was a moment of unity, of shared commitment to the principles that had been forged in battle and consecrated with sacrifice. After the speech, Chen returned to Earth for the last time. She retired to a small house overlooking the Pacific Ocean, content to spend her remaining years in peace. But she kept a memorial of her own, a small holographic display that showed the faces of everyone who had died under her command. Captain Webb's face was there, along with thousands of others who had given everything to protect humanity's future. She visited New Horizon one final time before her death, 20 years after the memorial's dedication. The colony was thriving now, home to millions once again. The scars of the bombardment had faded, covered by new growth and new construction. But the memorial remained, pristine and eternal, ensuring that the names of the dead would never be forgotten. Chen stood before the memorial, her aged body bent but her spirit still strong, and spoke to the names carved in stone. We did it. We changed the galaxy for you. We made sure it wouldn't happen again. I hope wherever you are, you know that your deaths weren't meaningless. They sparked a revolution that freed billions. That has to count for something. She died peacefully in her sleep 2 months later, surrounded by family and honored across the galaxy. Her funeral was attended by representatives from every species in the Galactic Council. They came to pay respects to the woman who had stood against an empire and won, who had transformed a military victory into lasting political change, who had proven that one determined species could indeed stop forces that seemed unstoppable. The inscription on her memorial, placed beside the monument on New Horizon, read simply, "She heard the laughter of empires and answered in fire. She transformed human survival into galactic freedom. She never forgot the 4 million names. Decades turned into centuries. The galaxy continued to evolve, facing new challenges and new opportunities. The Galactic Council endured, sometimes struggling, sometimes thriving, but always maintaining the core principle that no species had the right to dominate another. Humanity remained active in galactic affairs, but, true to Chen's vision, they never sought dominance. They contributed their unique perspective, the experience of being weak and fighting back, the memory of nearly being destroyed, the determination never to let it happen to others. It made them advocates for smaller species, defenders of the vulnerable, and tireless opponents of any attempt to recreate the old order. And on New Horizon, the memorial stood eternal, 4 million names carved in black stone, a reminder of the terrible price of arrogance and the transformative power of resistance. New generations visited and learned the story of how their galaxy had changed, how one battle had sparked a revolution, how the species that was supposed to be destroyed had instead destroyed an empire's authority. The Confederation's words echoed through history. "One fleet can't stop us." Humanity's answer echoed louder. "Watch us try." And in trying, in fighting, in refusing to surrender even when defeat seemed certain, humanity had done something the Confederation never imagined possible. They had stopped an empire not through superior force but through superior determination. They had taught the galaxy that freedom was worth any price, and that no force, however ancient or powerful, could stand forever against species willing to fight for their right to exist. The galaxy had laughed when humanity spoke. Then humanity spoke in fire, and the galaxy learned to listen. It was a lesson that would never be forgotten, carved not just in stone on New Horizon, but in the very structure of galactic civilization itself. The old order had fallen, a new one had risen from its ashes. And at the foundation of that new order stood a simple principle, purchased with 4 million lives and defended by countless more, that all species, no matter how weak or primitive, deserved the chance to determine their own fate. It was humanity's gift to the stars, and it was a gift that would endure long after the names of individual heroes were forgotten, long after the battles faded into history, long after even humanity itself might pass from the galactic stage. Because some ideas once planted can never truly die, and the idea that freedom is worth fighting for, that resistance is possible, that one fleet can change everything when driven by necessity and determination. That idea would burn forever among the stars, a fire that could never be extinguished. The Confederation had said one fleet couldn't stop them. Humanity proved that one fleet, one battle, one moment of defiance could change the galaxy forever, and the galaxy would never be the same.